You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Hey guys, I want to first thank you for tuning in to the show. It's much appreciated. And because you guys are listening to this either on the podcast or tuning into the live stream or past video, I want to thank you by giving you free 15 minutes of my time to help you grow either your podcast, grow your business, monetize your podcast, anything like that that you need help with when it comes to podcasting. I want to help you out. So just head over to my website, fulfillment.If. I'll gladly speak with you. I have a lot of time available. So you have 15-minute slots. Just choose one and I will see you then. But enough about
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, the Podcast Mogul Phil Better. And today I am honored to have Travis Chappell, host of a top 25 podcast, Build Your Network, interviewer of multitude high-level guests, and actually creator of an amazing website called Guestio that helps you connect high-value guests with high-value content creators. Travis, thank you so much for being here.
Phil, what's up, man? Thanks so much for having me.
Travis, I do need to let you know I'm a little nervous because you are one of my top 10 guests, because I have been following your podcast for a while and your content, and I'm looking forward. You have a mastermind next week that I'm looking forward to being a part of. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, brother. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Travis, you've told on your podcast over the time that you grew the podcast because you wanted to grow your network and connect with become a better networker. And you've kind of alluded to that you don't like the word networker, you like connector. Why don't you like the word networker?
It's just kind of a buzzword. I personally don't have a huge problem with it. It's just that a lot of other people have a problem with it. And sometimes it's difficult to, change the perception of a particular word when it's been so ingrained in people to think about it in a negative connotation. So, back in like 80s, 90s, this networking style kind of culture, I think put a bad impression on the word for a lot of people in their minds. And so people think of networking as like kind of like dirty word, like it's something that you shouldn't be doing because it sounds spammy, and it gives people the picture. I call him Networking Ned, the guy that shows up to the networking event with the name tag and 1,000 hot off the press business cards and walks around, just barfing out elevator pitches on anybody who will listen. And then before they can say anything, he leaves and goes to the next person and shoves another business card in their face and gives you an extra 12 business cards to pass out to your neighbors. And it's just like, ugh, this person is so slimy and smarmy and gross that I just don't want to network at all. And that's what ends up happening is you have these two groups of people where it's all the networking Neds, and then it's all the people that just like hate that so much that they just think networking is a scam and they shouldn't do it. And so I try to, kind of have a little bit of a middle ground there and create my own category of people who are actually really good at quote unquote networking, but essentially networking is just relationship building. And so that's kind of another reason why I try to stay away from it, is just like, I don't want you to think about networking any different than you would think about building a relationship with a buddy at a bar. It's the same concept. It just happens to be building relationships with people that tend to have similar interests that you have, and you're doing it on purpose for the purpose of professional development and continuing to push yourself to be a better version of yourself. But to me, the activity should still be the same. It's still about creating relationship. It's still about finding common ground. It's still about making memories, creating experiences, hanging out with people on purpose because you know that it's good for you long term, in different things like that. So I try to stay away from the word networking, but mainly because it already has a negative stigma, and I don't want people to think about the two activities as being separate activities.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I was listening to the first episode that I could find on Spotify, episode 22 with Ivan Messer, and you did a contest to get reviews on your podcast.
Yeah.
And you offered a dollar amount. And I want to know, did you do any other tests to grow your podcast in the early days or even later on? Because you're over 700 episodes done now.
Yeah.
Like, have you done many tests, or is it like sporadic testing here and there?
Yeah, sporadic testing here and there. The dollar amount for reviews thing didn't work very well because nobody was listening to my podcast. So who was going to listen to that? You know what I mean? Like at the beginning, nobody was paying attention to anything that I put out. So I could put as many calls to action as I wanted to in there. Nobody's going to do anything. So that didn't work very well. But over the years, though, I've done a few things that ended up working pretty well. The number one thing is being a guest on other podcasts like we're doing right now. Other things would be buying ad space in other people's podcasts or buying ad space on podcasting platforms. A lot of it has to do with paid marketing because you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of free and organic ways to do it, but it's just going to be a really, really long haul to do the free ways, in my opinion.
I want to touch on the paid advertising on other podcasts because I had a previous guest who runs a D&D podcast who did the same thing, and he saw an increase in his Patreon because he's not going the corporate way. Similar, you're more of a business podcast, if you will. How has the paid advertising on other podcasts helped you? Like, what kind of ads do you run on those podcasts?
Yeah, you can buy ads and sponsor spots just like a company does. So you go identify podcasts that have the audience that you want. And then you pay them to run ads, like 30-second, 60-second mid-roll, pre-roll ad spots on their shows that is the host reading an ad that says, go listen to this person's show. You're going to find similar content or you're going to hear similar interviews. So go over there and check it out type of a thing. So it's very, very simple, straightforward. It's just that you don't know if you're advertising on Google or Facebook or Instagram or some of these other platforms, you just don't know if that person's a podcast listener. You could put up a message on a billboard, but how many people that are driving by the billboard listen to podcasts? The only way to know for sure that the person that you're reaching listens to podcasts is if you're advertising to them while they're listening to a podcast. So it just, to me, makes sense.
Okay, I like that. What got you into podcasting? Like, what was it that was like, this is why, like, I want to try podcasting, but what was it?
I became an avid listener myself. So I was at a point in my life where I wouldn't necessarily say rock bottom, but definitely back against the wall type of a moment. Wasn't sure what I was doing with my life. Didn't know what the next steps were going to be. I was just confused and kind of just broken, and dove into trying to figure out what I was going to do. So, I didn't really have any connections in that world or anything. I just opened up Apple Podcasts and listened to one or two, started talking to people about podcasts, started getting recommendations from people and listened to a few shows. And after a while of listening, I was like, man, this seems like it would be a lot of fun. So started one.
Cool. What has been your favorite moment so far in podcasting?
Oh man. That's tough. There's so many things that have come out of it. I mean, literally all the good things in my life at this moment have come directly from my podcast in some way. Relationships, friendships, business partnerships, money, resources, extra time that I have, traveling. So many of those things have been a direct correlation to my podcast that I just wouldn't have any of those things in my life had I not started one. So it's really difficult to point back just to one moment because there's so many. There's so many things that have been added into my life because I had a podcast that I don't even know what my life would look like right now, to be honest with you.
Okay. That's a great answer. It feels like you've been asked this question a few times.
Yeah, definitely that one, and more so the one about like, who's your favorite guest? And it's just like it's like trying to pick between.
Make sure I'll cross that one off. Just cross that one off the list. But concerning guests, and it's not your favorite guest, but what has been like the craziest way you've connected with a guest?
There's a couple that come to mind. Grant Cardone was a big one for me at the time because I was a big fan of his when I first got started. He was one of the first podcasts that I was listening to. And so he was on my list since the beginning, and I really wanted to get him on. I just didn't think it was going to be possible for a while. And so when I got that interview, it was after like 7 months of trying to reach out and getting other people in his network booked and getting connected to this person who connected me to that person who connected me to this person. And then finally was able to get him to say yes. And so that was a big win for me. Not even because of the interview itself, but because it told me that this is possible. That I had a goal in mind that was seemingly impossible. I had no idea at the time when I set the goal how I was going to be able to accomplish it, but I took action toward achieving that goal, and I was able to figure it out at some point. And so just that action by itself taught me that, like, look, if I can figure this out, I could probably figure it out again in a different context. And that confidence building was extremely helpful in moving from project to project. Another one that I thought was really cool was Molly Bloom, just because I watched her movie and had zero connections to her otherwise, and just started reaching out best way I knew how. And it took me 7 months of like constantly being in touch and messaging. And sometimes she would ignore me and sometimes she would reject me. And, but just kind of kept being persistent, adding a little bit of value, trying to be professional. And after like 7 months of reaching out, she finally said yes. And now, like, if I, she's actually a friend, I text her, she texts me back, and we talk occasionally and try to help her out as much as I can. And she does some stuff for me. So that was one of the ones that ended up being like a really cool ongoing, relationship, not even just a single podcast interview that happened out of something that I, watching the movie, I was just like, this is impossible. How in the world am I able to get a hold of this girl? And, don't even know what she looks like. Cause in the movie, it's Jessica Chastain that's playing Molly. It's not her. So I was like, I don't even know what this girl looks like. So I have to Google or try to find these other, ways to reach out and then convince her it's worth coming on my show. At the time, my show was like 6 months old. Hadn't had anybody really big. I still had like 200-300 downloads an episode at the time. So there wasn't really any reason for her to even go on the show. And so that was probably another one of those big ones that was just like, wow, this is cool that I was able to, again, it was just another deposit in the confidence account, because I just, when I first thought about it, I immediately dismissed it. When I first thought about it, I was like, I'll be cool to interview her. And I was like, no, it's impossible. And I caught myself saying that. And I was like, well, I mean, she's alive, right? Like, she's got a pulse, her heart beats. So if she is alive and exists, then there's some way to get in touch with her and get a hold of her and then bring her on the show. I just got to figure out what that is, and start asking myself the question, instead of just assuming things are impossible, I now sit there and look at it. And if my first instinct is like, oh, this is impossible, I say, okay, it's impossible. But if it were possible, though, just as a thought experiment, if it were possible, what would that look like? If it were possible, what would it take? And starting to come up with like, okay, I would probably have to figure out a way to initiate the contact. Is that through a connection that I have? Do I know anybody that she knows or that knows her? Can I go to her Instagram or her Facebook or some of her social and see who she follows and see if I might have a mutual connection with her? Okay, that didn't work out. So what would be a different way to do that? Maybe I can just directly DM her, or, like it was just started to become this kind of a game of like, yeah, that's impossible. But if it weren't impossible, how would I make it possible? Like, what are the steps that I would need to take in order for this to be possible? And am I willing to put in the work to get there? That's really the crux of the question, because once you figure out the steps, it's like, okay, well, some people I've figured out the steps, and then I'm like, it's not worth it to me. This interview does not matter that much to me for me to put in this much work to get to it. You know what I mean? Or like, that's going to take like 7 years. You know what I mean? Like some
Warren Buffett, 7 years, right. Probably.
Right. It's like, yeah, some people you're looking at getting in touch with The Rock. It's like, man, the best way to do this is probably to, Kevin Hart and The Rock are pretty well connected to each other. And I know Kevin Hart does a lot of corporate speaking and sponsorships and stuff like that. So maybe if I can, get a funded event and then pay Kevin to come on my stage and then get a connection to The Rock from, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So like these are thought processes that I've actually had. And then when I look at that, I'm like, okay, that to me right now is currently not worth it for me. But it doesn't mean that it's never going to be worth it for me. And at least at this point, I've kind of at least reverse engineered some of those steps to figure out how to get there so that if I presented with the opportunity at some point in the future, I might be able to actually make that happen. But it's just, it's impossible. Okay. But if it were possible, what would it take? And am I willing to put the work in to get to that point?
It's what you just said is exactly how we connected, because I tagged you in an Instagram post about one of announcing Guestio, and you said, yeah, sure. And that's how we connected. So it works. Like, that's literally how we connected. I got a top 10 dream guest. But I want to ask, who is in your top 5 guests that you're still looking to get? Because you're going to be continuing your podcast, Build Your Network. It's now going to be interviews with Travis.
Yeah.
Or Travis interviews, correct?
Yeah. Travis interviews. Yeah. So a few of the people that I would love to sit down with, I mean, The Rock is one of them. Tim Ferriss is one of them. LeBron James is one of them. I have a whole list somewhere, but those are 3 names off the top of my head.
Those are
Gary Vaynerchuk.
names.
Gary V's been elusive for me. So I'd like to sit down with him. He was one of the people that inspired me to start my show. So there's a few people off the top of my head.
Those are some big names.
Shaq's another one. Shaq's like a childhood hero. He was my favorite basketball player growing up. I had like pictures of him and jerseys, all that stuff hanging in my room growing up. So he'd be a cool one too.
Pretty sure if you get Shaq or LeBron, either way, you're going to be able to connect to the other one.
Maybe, hopefully.
I want to, since you use networking and podcasting to grow your network and help others, what is the one tip you can give podcasters to go after those valued guests? And then we can jump into why you started Guestio, because that's a way to help podcasters.
One tip to get podcasters. One tip about getting good guests.
Yeah.
One tip about getting good guests. Probably the biggest needle moving tip that I could give, regardless of who the guest is or what level they're on, is exactly what I already said. And I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it is just true. It's the mindset that matters most, because most people won't ever interview the guest that they want to interview because they just don't think it's going to be possible, or they don't think that they're worthy of interviewing that guest. And this is kind of what we're going to be going over next week during our challenge. On the first day or two, is just reframing your mind to believe that something is possible. Because if you don't believe that it's possible, you're not going to try at all. If you do believe that it's possible, you're all of a sudden going to start trying some things. Like, you would be surprised how many top level guests I've gotten just by shooting them a DM on Instagram. Like, they responded and then they said yes. I was like, oh, like, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be, and the majority of them don't, right? But like, if I reached out to 20 people on Instagram and 2 of them said yes, it's like, wow, that's cool. Those people just said yes because I reached out to them. And if I didn't believe that it was possible for me to book them, I would not have reached out to them and I would not have booked them. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say it all starts in the mind, because most people just won't do it because they don't believe that it's possible. So I think it starts with mindset. And then I would say just take action, start reaching out. You're going to get better at it. Your first couple pitches might suck. You might get rejected a lot. You might get ignored a lot. And you probably will if you're reaching out to the high level people that you really want to talk to. You're probably going to get rejected. You're probably going to get ignored. In fact, it's guaranteed. I'll tell you right now, it's guaranteed that those things are going to happen. But eventually get a little bit better with the pitching. You start understanding what people want from you. You start being able to add a little bit more value or tailor your pitch to a person a specific way, or figure out this platform works better for you because of X, Y, and Z. Like, you're going to learn things along the way. You're going to get better along the way. And then if you reach out to 20, 30 people and one of them says yes, it's easier to get the second one than it was to get the first one. And then it's easier to get the 5th one than it was the second one. It's easier to get the 15th one than it was to get the 5th one. And it starts kind of being like a snowball. And a lot of those high-level guests I've had on my show at this point, their teams, media teams, and PR teams have reached out to me, and without me even having to reach out to them, because that snowball starts to pick up, momentum on its own and starts to grow on its own as it rolls down the hill. So you just got to be willing to push it uphill for a while before you can push it over the other side and let it roll down the hill for you.
There we go. Wisdom. Now, so you created Guestio to help podcasters and content creators connect to those high-valued guests. Where did you come up with the idea?
I was scratching my own itch. I was always trying to level up the guests that I was communicating with, and historically, like I said at the beginning, it took me like 6-7 months to land Grant, took me 7-8 months to land Molly, it took me 9-10 months to land Jack Canfield. It's really difficult to get a hold of these people, as it should be. Their time is in demand, and they've earned the right to have their time be in demand and make it impossible to get in touch with them. So you have to get really creative and spend months and months of your time reaching out, being rejected, being ignored, finding gatekeepers, going to backdoor entrances, going to events and conferences, there's so many things that you can do there. Or you can go to Guestio and you can pay them $300 and interview them tomorrow. Or next week or whatever. So to me, it's just like a shaving off of that much time. And when you can save people that much time, I think that's a big win.
No, it's true. I love Guestio. There's so many great guests on it. I am looking at one or two that are currently outside my price range, but with your contest that's coming up next week about getting those credits, why don't you just talk about what you have planned for the next, it's a 5-day masterclass, correct?
Yeah, so we're doing a 5-day guest challenge, book your dream guest challenge, basically where we're encouraging people to jump in. We're going to do some teaching throughout the week on how to reach out to the high-level guests you want to reach out to. But in that, we're also going to be giving away some Guestio cash, which is spendable cash inside of the Guestio marketplace that will allow you to be able to not just reach out to and have a high chance of booking, but actually get people to say yes and book them on your show through the Guestio marketplace during the challenge next week. So we're doing 5 full days, all about, mindset. And then what your reach out message should look like, how to create your podcast or show host press kit to make yourself look more appealing to potential guests you're reaching out to. And then the exact copy to say in your reach out messages, all that stuff we're going over, for the full week next week.
Looking forward
5
to
bookings in 5 days. That's the goal. 5 bookings in 5 days.
For sure. Guaranteed it's going to work, because it's helped me already just watching some of your videos and listening to your podcast. So this masterclass is going to be great. Travis, I'm going to jump off screen. I'm going to give you the last few minutes here to let everybody know where they can find you, follow you, and get more information about you and your podcast and the mastermind coming up. Okay?
Sure. So everything that I do, you can find over at travischappell.com. Depending on when you look at it, it might be a little bit outdated, but all the social links and email and everything, all that's up to date. So be sure to go check that out, travischappell.com, CHAPPELL. And then if you are interested in Guestio, that's really quick and easy over at guestio.com. Guest as in be a guest, guestio.com. You can over there create a free account, browse through the marketplace of guests that we have set up over there, and start, doing some bookings today.
Excellent. Travis, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And everybody, all in the show notes will be all the links to go make sure you can follow Travis and get onto Guestio. It is an amazing platform and one of my favorite places to find guests. I thank you so much for everybody being here. And Travis, thank you again for being a great guest. And remember, everybody, to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.